I am so excited for this training, you all. We're going to go over some stuff that is going to completely transform your business. One of the beliefs that I hold is that you can literally operate any business, I don't care what it is, from one simple dashboard. And when you are a CEO, you need to be able to make decisions fast and you need to be able to have simple information that's going to drive actions so that you can move fast because wealth loves speed and you don't have time to waste, especially in this technology era that we're in. And we are really transitioning to a new era where relationships are going to be more valuable than they've ever been. And so I just want to cover a mindset minute about this. A lot of people want to tell themselves that they don't understand money, they don't understand numbers. And this is such a huge lie that so many people are telling themselves. What the actual problem is that nobody ever helped you understand what is the story this information is telling me, and then what do I do with it? And so I know that you understand money and I know that you understand numbers because you know when your bank account has more in it and when it has less in it. You know what it means when there's more and when there's less. You know what it means when money goes in and when it comes out. And so I know that inherently you understand numbers and you understand data. You just don't know what actions to take as a result of it. And I'm going to help simplify so much of that for you today with this CEO dashboard. I love this tool. We have been using it with clients for a very long time. And what is so fun and so cool about this is that the longer you use it, the simpler your business becomes and the more that you can truly become the CEO of your business. Because what is a CEO? The acronym stands for Chief Executive Officer. But when I think about who is a CEO, like who is the person that becomes a CEO? A CEO does not say Chief Operations Officer, Chief Executive Officer. Your number one job as the CEO of your company is to make sure that people know who you are and you are selling. And that you are putting your people, you're putting your resources, you're putting your offer out there in front of people. And you were getting more in alignment with who you were supposed to be. And we could talk so much about numbers, show you the picture of who you are. And I think that's what's so fun about entrepreneurship is that when you start to really understand being a data-driven CEO, and we're going to use the CEO dashboard today to show you how you're going to do that, and you're going to make your business so simple. I don't care if you're at 500 grand in revenue or if you're at 5 million, this dashboard is going to work for you. You just have to believe that it's going to. And one of the things that I really want to going into the mindset side of this is understanding who do I have to become to be a person that can operate my business with a tool so simple. Like it has to be too good to be true. And I know that some people initially will argue with me about this because they're stuck in their familiar discomfort. Now, you hear a lot of people refer to your comfort zone, but I don't believe that because the thing is that if you were comfortable, then you wouldn't be pursuing more. You wouldn't be pursuing more dreams that you truly have, and you would be capped out, tapped out on dreaming. And the goal is that you never truly would be. We want you to experience alignment, not truly ever. We want you to experience comfort in being able to enjoy the things that your business can give you. But as you're growing and you're committed to growth, you're not ever really going to truly be in any kind of comfort zone. Being aware of the fact that you are in a familiar discomfort is such an important awareness to have. And the reason I bring this up is that this is going to be really new for a lot of people. I know so many business owners that are bringing in millions in revenue in their business. I know business owners that are bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars in their business. And they are not using data to drive their decisions, and they're stuck not maximizing their capacity, and they're stuck doing things that they are not aligned with, that they're not great at, and they're doing things that they know they should pass off to somebody else, but they're scared to let that control go. They're scared to make that investment in that person because they're spending all this time doing things that they shouldn't be doing because they don't know what they should be doing. And data gives you that clarity. And I don't want people to be accountants. I don't want you to be an expert at reading financial statements. I want you to be an expert at understanding what data do you need to know for the vision that you have, for the goals that you have set, and for the actions that you need to take. And that is what this CEO dashboard is all about. The CEO dashboard is meant to be designed for you to use based on what your vision and goals are. And so no two people, no two businesses CEO dashboard is going to look the same. And I hold a belief that, we work with so many med spas, and I have never come across one that was the same as the other. And it's funny because one of the things that I often hear is the word competition, and that is just a concept that does not exist here. And when I hear people talk about competition, the thing that comes to mind for me is that you're too focused on what other people doing rather than becoming the person that you're meant to be and being that person through the service that you provide, through the team that you build, and everything that you build as part of your empire. And so I want to show you how you can be so dialed into your business that not only is it going to make competition irrelevant, it's going to make you so clear, so focused, so in tune, so excited, and so confident to show up, to lead your team, to know what to work on, to know what you should be focusing on, and to be an objective decision and action taker in your business instead of operating out of emotion. And I know that that is something that so many business owners struggle with, is making decisions based on emotion, especially when we're not aware of the fact that that's what we're doing. And this is going to take all of that emotion out of this so that you can make objective decisions, so that these decisions, data doesn't lie. And that is the really fun thing about this, is that nobody's going to be able to argue with the decisions that you make, because the proof is in the pudding. You have the information and the data to back it up. Now, one of the things that I'll say about this, and we're gonna go over to the CEO dashboard, and I'm gonna walk you through many facets of this. But what I love about this dashboard is this literally is a revolutionary tool that is so simple. It is in Excel. It's not in any fancy platform, and it literally can be used for any business. But we're going to focus on med spas today and why this is going to be perfect for you. And this is going to solve so many of your cash flow leaks in your business. And even if you feel like I'm making good money, I don't necessarily need this. The fun thing about this is that it's not about the money that you're making. It's about the impact that you could be having, but you're not, because of the money that you're not making. And oftentimes what really the problem is that it's easy to see the problems when you can see what's there. It's easy to see profitability problems when you're spending too much money, because you can see it in the numbers. You can see the expenses and the money that's going out and the lack of revenues that are coming in. But what a lot of people are failing to look at is what's not there. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go over some of that, and I'm really going to show you. This is going to bring you so much clarity. Like I said, this is so simple. It's fun to use. It is a leadership tool. It is a process development tool. It is a people tool. It is a vision tool. It is a profitability tool. And at the end of the day, everything affects your cash flow, right? Your leadership, the way that you lead your team, the effectiveness of your team, the offers that you provide, the services that you provide, the products that you sell, the pricing that you have on those services, all of these things at the end of the day come back to affect your cash flow. And so I'm really excited to dive into this. I'm going to share my screen. And one of the things I just want to say is that there's going to be a lot of information on here. Don't let this overwhelm you. Now, the goal of this, like I said, is to help you to design a business that you can operate from this one dashboard. And it helps you to get into alignment with, who am I truly supposed to be as a CEO? Where do I fit best? And I think what's really cool about this is that it allows you to see who on your team is your implementers and who are your visionaries with you. And really, you want a team more of implementers than you want visionaries, because the thing is that as a CEO, you want to be the visionary. You want to have that dream so big, and you need to be able to continue to develop that so that the rest of your team's dreams continue to fit into that. And that's why it's so important that you really become the expert on understanding the data as it pertains to the vision that you want to fulfill, the mission that you and your team on as a whole with this business, what that looks like in the operations and the day-to-day, and just getting really in tune with this. So there is a lot of information on here, and I'm going to be talking about this under a couple of assumptions. One, you or somebody on your team know how to use Excel in a generalized manner. You're going to know, because like I said, this is going to be an example that we're going to go through today, but this may not be relevant for you. But I want to show you how you can customize it and why you want to customize it and how that matters. So you need to have somebody that has a rudimentary understanding of Excel on your team. I would not, while I think it's good for you to have some understanding of that, you should not be the person that is completing this information on a week-to-week basis. And you see down here at the bottom that we have a monthly template, a weekly template. We're just going to cover weekly today. And the reason is that there's so much to dive into here and also the information that you're going to look at on a weekly basis is going to be slightly different than the information you're going to be looking at on a monthly basis. And so looking at this on a monthly basis, we're going to look at some different data. We're going to cover that in another class. And so I really just want to go over what information might you be tracking on a weekly basis, and then what actions are you taking as a result of that. And the cool thing about this is that we created and designed Clarity to Cash Flow and our advising packages based on the ability to help people move faster in their business, to be proactive. Because the thing is that if you are waiting to get this information, if you're not asking questions, if you don't care enough about your business to have somebody helping you with knowing necessary numbers and tracking your finances for your business, then you're going to fall behind. You're just never going to get to that elevated level that you want. And then that's where you really fall into that competition mindset, and you're going to stay there because you're doing the same thing that everybody else is. Competition is just equated to average. People that are worried about competition, they're worried about doing something that somebody else is doing better than they are, and you just can't. And so we're going to be looking at this information on a weekly basis. And I want you to understand that these KPIs, these key performance indicators, these cash flow indicators, because at the end of the day, key performance indicators are cash flow indicators, because every single one of these in some way or another affects your cash flow. And that could be a whole other training that we could go into, but we're not going to do that today. So I want to go over a few basic tenets of the weekly CEO dashboard. So each week you're going to want to start this over. And one of the other things that I kind of glazed over and I want to make sure I go back to is that ideally you're going to have an assistant that's going to fill out this information for you every week, like clockwork. And I mean, like I said, we do this with clients. I have some clients where I meet with them every single week to go over their cash flow indicators with them. We are looking at this on a weekly basis because we want to move fast. If we wait once a month to look over this information, we've already lost. And I don't like losing. And so I want to be able to move fast. I want to course correct as fast as I can. And this tool allows us to know what processes do we need to implement? Do we have people that are the right people, but they're in the wrong seat? We find that stuff out so much faster when we're looking at it on a weekly basis. So having an assistant, if you have to hire a virtual assistant to fill this out for you on a weekly basis, and that is all they do, then it is worth the investment to do that. Don't have somebody else on your team that your client relations manager, if she loathes doing Excel and that was not part of her job description, and she doesn't actually need to know how to use this platform to fulfill her role, don't have her or him doing that. Hire an assistant to do that. And the other reason that I recommend people to hire an assistant to do this is that you do not want people that are in charge of these metrics to be the person that's entering them. It just keeps things honest. It reinforces internal controls, which is something in the accounting world that we talk about a lot. But even when it comes to holding people accountable, it just keeps us honest, right? And then even, people on our team, I'm sure that they have integrity. But the thing is at the end of the day, if you have somebody that objectively is just looking at this information to put it in there, you're going to get insight from them. If it doesn't make sense where they're getting it from, if they don't know how to calculate it, and they're not going to put emotion into it. So there's just so much value. So hire somebody 2 hours a week and get somebody on Upwork to do this. We recommend this, like I said, to all of our clients to do this. If you already have an assistant, that person would be great for this. But I just want to put that out there. So you're going to, each week, each month you're going to copy this template. So you're just going to copy it over. You're going to update the weeks on here, and you can do these weeks however you want to, whether you start with a full 7 days or, for example, we're doing May of 2024 on this one. So we're looking at our weeks end on Saturdays. Okay, so we're going to do this for the 1st to the 4th. I feel like that's pretty straightforward. So just making sure that you're updating your weeks and that this is a consistent methodology. And one of the things you might do is that there's going to be some things in here. I would recommend you to take some notes on this for yourself. And then for as you use this, to make sure like, hey, we want to make sure we use this the way that makes sense for our aesthetics practice. I want to note, like, this is not an actual company that I know of. This is a sample name. So if there is an Elevated Aesthetics out there somewhere, there probably is. This is not their data. So take notes on this, on how to use this, because you're going to find you're going to find little ways where maybe you want to tweak this. But I would encourage you as much as possible not to change formulas in here or things of that nature. Or if there are formulas, use the same conventions as far as how this is bolded and highlighted. I'll talk about that. But for the most part, you're going to want to maintain consistency with this. So the next thing you have over here, you're going to record this data by week. You want to make sure you can get this information from a reliable source, and we'll get to that in a moment. So you're going to have a metric type over here. So is this going to be a total or a sum of all of these, or is this going to be an average? You're only going to have 2 here. So you can hit this little drop down and change this from average to total. And then this right here, this is a formula, so you're not going to want to touch this. Based off of what you select here, if we're going to do average, it's going to change that. If you're going to do total, it's going to change that. So really all you got to fill in is just a handful of things every month, every week, and just copy this over. And then why do I love this dashboard? What makes it different than just tracking KPIs? Because the thing is that if you don't have a target set, then it's irrelevant. What is the point of having $100,000 in the bank just to have it? Now, what if you have $100,000 in the bank and you know that you're saving up to buy a new device or to expand into another location, because that is really what's going to allow you to accelerate, and you have this business plan for this other location that has triple the amount of rooms in it that you can provide treatments and services in. That's completely different energy and attachment to that $100,000 that you have in there. Whereas if you just had $100,000 with no goals, then you just have it. And there's no intention there. And intention is such a key component of maximizing your cash flow, of profitability. Because think about it. If you don't have intention, if you are not setting targets, then your attention goes everywhere, or it doesn't go anywhere where it's concentrated, right? And so we want you to set intention for all of these targets, because otherwise there's no point in tracking cash flow indicators or key performance indicators if you're just keeping track. Otherwise, you're just giving somebody a meaningless job. And one of the worst things that I think any human on the face of this earth ever experiences is doing something and they don't see the reason why they're doing it. That is the most meaningless thing ever. And I mean, even coming down to the fact of reporting KPIs every week, why are we doing this? People want to know. They may not know that they want to know this, but they want to know why what they do matters, which just goes back to one of the ways that this is a leadership tool. So have a target for this. Now, how do you know what targets to set? Well, if you don't do regular planning in your business, I would start there. I would immediately get off of here, write down a note right now to immediately, when you get off of this training, go and set your first quarterly planning day and do that every quarter. And you're going to be focused on, this is the goals that we want to hit. And don't worry about it being perfect. You don't have to have all of this stuff nailed down. You will refine that. Now, if you want somebody to help you go through this full process where we can help you be incredibly intentional, which makes you incredibly profitable, maximizes cash flow, and you want to talk about freedom and impact like you've never had before, we go through a business blueprint with some of our clients that go through this full planning process. We get very clear on what we need to do every 3 months. If you've ever heard of EOS, it's similar to that, but better. And so if you don't do planning right now, you really need to do that, because that's where a lot of these targets are going to come from, and financial forecasting. But if you just have a ballpark right now, if you maybe you want to immediately go through and implement this, which I want you to do. Go look at your last 3 months of data and your point of sale. If you have Jane, if you have a static record, a lot of the data that you're going to want to track, you're going to get straight out of that point of sale. So go look at prior periods. Obviously, you want to do better than you did in the past. So take what you did and increase it by 10% month over month and make that your target for the next 3 months. And then you're going to divide that up by 5 weeks. It's simple. There's your target. There you go. So the next thing you're going to have here is status. And this is going to change based off of a legend that is down here. And so your status is going to update based off of what is your actual versus what is your target and where are you at during that time of the month. Now you're going to kind of ballpark this. And this is an example that is completely filled out. But you're going to know if our monthly target is $115,000 in revenue and we're the second week into the month and we've only made $20,000 worth of revenue, we need some improvement here. This is going to become critical, or it's going to need immediate attention depending on where we're at. So wherever you are, you got to kind of look at what week am I in and how close to that target I should be. So, I mean, if I have 4.5 weeks in the month and I want $115,000 in revenue, then that means that I need to average about $26,000 of revenue per week. If I'm only at 25,000 for 2 weeks, then we really got to look at why is that happening. One, did you set your target way too high? I would say probably not, but that could be the case. But two, this is where this data comes into directing your action. So you're going to look at this and you're like, oh, wow, we're not doing what I thought we were this time of the month. We got to figure out like what's happening because this is not normal, right? And so not only are we going to update our CEO dashboard, but then we're going to make a note over here, or we're immediately going to go talk to our practice manager since, that's the person that's in charge of the overall revenue generating operations of the team. We're going to go talk to that practice manager like, okay, we need to strategize here. Like what's going on? The other thing about this is that if you're 50% of the way through the month and you've already hit your revenue target by 75%, that is phenomenal. You also want to dig into why did that happen? I think too many times people focus on the negative and solving problems more than they focus on seeking solutions. Like, oh my gosh, how can we duplicate this? There's not enough discussion around that. So look at what you're doing that is good and replicate that, refine that. This is where you really want to enhance that recipe for results, right? And that is going to be something that we are going to be creating a course around that is going to be available in Progress University. I'm so excited about that. Recipe for Results is all about creating your proprietary, not worried about competition framework for the services that you provide in your med spa to provide an unparalleled experience that not only allows you to set yourself apart from the competition, but you're going to have exceptional profitability because it's going to allow you to command, because of the experience that your clients have when they come and see you, and it's unlike anything else, and it's like just leaves them like thirsting for more of that. You're going to be able to have that luxury pricing that's going to make you extremely profitable. And why that's so important is that you want to be able to price yourself based on where you want to go, not out of the convenience of where you are. And so being able to have that recipe for results, like we consistently get our clients these full face rejuvenation results that is unlike anything in the United States or anything in this region, and nobody else, like we are known for this experience. Like that is the recipe for results that we want to get you. So that's going to be another course module that you'll be able to go through. So you want to be able to pick out those things that you do really well and to fix the things that maybe you want to perfect, right? And I don't mean like you can't move until you perfect it, but there's things that we always have opportunities to improve. So the next part of this is you're going to see on here is target completion. And this is just a quick touch on how far, just kind of going back to how do I know how to update this status? It's going to be based on this target completion. And you're going to go down here to this legend. Now, there's going to be a few things on this CEO dashboard where your percentage may be over, and you need to be able to determine, is this over a good thing or a bad thing? So when it comes to spending money, if it's over the target, that's a bad thing. We need to mark that as an improvement. However, If our revenues are 110%, so they're 10% more than what we set our target, we exceeded our target. That is phenomenal news. And so we want to be able to do that again next month. And so we might raise that target. But just being aware of like what is that target completion? Is that good or bad? In most cases on here, it's going to be good, but you know, if it comes to cancellations down here, if it comes to your net cash flow maybe, and no, not your net cash flow, your payroll, then those are not going to be good things that target has exceeded 100%. The next thing on here is the metric owner, and I want you to not put people's names in here, because the thing is that you want to create an ecosystem for growth in your company. I think that's so important for so many reasons. But the thing is that somebody that is your practice manager, that role is responsible for these KPIs. That person is not responsible. So if we have a practice manager named Andy, she is not going to be, you're not going to put her name in here, because if she moves to a different role, maybe she moves from practice manager to COO. You have gotten to where you're 5 million in revenue, and you've got a couple of different segments that you've got operating, and she's the COO, and you have a different practice manager, and maybe you have a couple of practice managers over different segments of the business. That practice manager is always going to be responsible for revenues maybe, but the COO is not going to have any metrics that they're necessarily responsible for, because they may be responsible for this dashboard as a whole, essentially. And so the thing, you know, going down here into some others, for instance, if we're measuring business segments, so something important for you to think about as you're growing your med spa. I know that when people first start out with their med spa, they might just be providing a handful or maybe even one service, and that's great. And as you grow, you don't think about the fact that your business is expanding. You're not just taking on more volume doing the same thing. A lot of times you're offering more services. And so being able to separate and compartmentalize them is very helpful, because it helps you to develop the processes and systems around that recipe for results that you want to optimize for people, right? And then you're not going to have your esthetician in charge of aesthetics, right? So I would want to measure those revenues separately. So I'm not going to have my lead esthetician in charge of my aesthetics revenues, and I'm not going to hold them accountable to that. So who am I going to hold accountable to that? Going to be my lead nurse practitioner. If you only have one aesthetics provider in that area, which I would say at this level of revenue that you have more, but if you only have one, then that person is just that you come to agreement like, hey, I'm counting on you to take care of these clients and help to drive this revenue for aesthetics. So I'm going to put you in charge of this KPI. We want you to work and collaborate with us to develop plans and initiatives to grow the aesthetics segment. And then when it comes to the esthetician revenues, the same thing, because the business plan for building out aesthetics and optimizing that and growing that segment is not going to be the same as it is for esthetician services, because you're not giving them the same results, or they wouldn't be the same people. And so you just want to make sure that you're able to assign a metric owner or roll down through here and what makes the most sense. And the thing is that I just really want to encourage you to go through and build this out. Don't worry about this being exact or perfect right now. Just do it, and then you can course correct later. This is going to give you more clarity than you've ever had if you just start than if you don't. Okay. And then the next thing is being very clear on where is this metric going to come from. Now, you see on here where I have formula, and I've highlighted this in bold. I've done that intentionally because there are formulas in here that some of these targets are going to be set based off of other targets that you put in here. And so one of the things that we'll do with when we're doing financial forecasting with our med spas is that we will set an overall revenue target, and then we will determine out of that level of revenue that we want to hit for that month or for that quarter, for that year, what percentage of that do we want to come from the different business segments. And so, for example, this target is a formula, but the metric source for where we're going to get the weekly data is going to come from your point of sale. But as far as this target being set here, say we wanted 70% of our revenues for this month to come from aesthetics, because that's what we're really focusing on maximizing right now. And that's what's giving us the most profitability to our bottom line so that we can expand and grow and go into other things, then we're going to put this formula in here as 0.7 times this revenue. So it's going to automatically set this for us. You're not going to have to go in here and manually update this. You just want to make sure that when you get finished, if you do your targets this way for these different segments, if you do choose to measure revenues this way or segments like this, you just want to make sure it's going to add up to your monthly target at the end of the day. And so just understanding that any of these bold ones are a formula in here, you don't need to manually enter. This also, these are formulas as well. So this average revenue per client, I think this is a great metric no matter who you are or what you're doing. I think this is a great metric to always measure because it just shows you like how valuable are our clients, right? And so I love to look at this, but this is also a formula. So this is just going to be, if you're measuring clients seen and your total revenues, then this is a formula of that. And it's just a simple division equation. And so all of these are going to be a formula over here. Now, as far as the metric source, when it says formula over here, that means that the metric source is what is the data in this section here. Why is this important? It's important, obviously, for a couple of reasons, because if you have that VA that's helping you to fill this out every week, and then you're reviewing it, which helps with objectivity. This also comes back to, are you having process problems in your business? So remember, I talked about this is a leadership tool, this is a process development tool, this is a people development tool. What I think is really cool about this is that when you are using the technology for your business properly, and in a process-driven fashion, it will give you the information accurately. It will give you accurate information from which you can make educated decisions off of. Now, just because it's accurate doesn't mean that it's accurate for your business. And what I mean is that that data that comes out of your technology is always accurate based off of the inputs that it is provided. If people are not using the technology correctly, if it has not been set up correctly, that goes back to a process or integration issue, which is not the technology's fault. It is a process fault or is a people problem. So one of the things that I would look at with this is that we say this metric source is our point of sale. Say you're using Jane, and we are tracking esthetician revenues, but we look at this data and it's like, this does not look right to me. Like, I know that we did more than that for aesthetic services. Well, you may go in there and find that when clients are booking services, it wasn't set up correctly to attribute the revenue to esthetician services. It's attributing that revenue to aesthetic services. So that's not a problem with the software, it's a problem with the process. So you need to go in there and fix that. And because the thing is that especially if you're doing bonuses off of these different things, if you are making data-driven decisions on the actions you're going to take to grow your business and you have the wrong data, I don't care what the data is telling you. If you're making a decision off of bad data, it's going to be a bad decision, no matter what the outcome is. Even if the outcome seems like it was good, it could have been better. Okay. And so it's really important to understand, we know where this data should come from, and then looking at this and asking yourself, okay, this is the information, but is this right? And this is another reason why I love the fact that this dashboard is manual, is because it requires you to have, although it's objective, it requires you to have a relationship with the data. I think one of the great things about technology these days is that you can have QuickBooks Online, you can have your accounting software, you can have your point of sale all integrated with this one platform that will read your KPIs and it'll give you a dashboard. But the thing is that it gives you a bunch of information that may not necessarily be relevant based off of your vision and goals. And because you don't have somebody on your team going in here and entering it manually, and you're not going in here and validating this information by reviewing it and say, hey, I set a target for this and it's on track and it looks great, but it's like, that's weird to me because it doesn't seem like based on operations that has been the case, then it's going to have you digging deeper. And so then you go back into, okay, we have a process problem, and I can 100% guarantee you, anytime you have a problem with processes, that's a cash flow leak. And so, like I said in here, if you're attributing the wrong revenues to these different segments here and you're not bonusing people correctly, or you're going to start running into all kinds of issues, right? Now, that rarely happens because the good thing about having an industry specific point of sale is that it's designed to not let that happen, but I do see it happen. And so it's important to understand, where does that metric come from, and do we have that metric set up to where that is reporting correctly and consistently, that we can pull that. So those are the really basic components of this. And once you get into the process of this, you're going to set this up initially, and you're only going to do this once. Now, you will, as we would encourage you to do quarterly planning for your business, because that's what's really going to take you from just growing to scaling. That's what's going to take you from marginal growth to having accelerated, elevated growth, right? If you're doing this planning every quarter, your CEO dashboard is probably going to reset every quarter. And what I mean is that you may keep some of these cash flow indicators on here, but some of these are going to change based off of the core initiatives that you set for that quarter, based off of the updated goals that you have for that quarter. And the really cool thing is that you want these to change, under the assumption that you're setting core initiatives, you're setting core quarterly goals, you're going to achieve those goals. And so you may want to continue to track that, but maybe you need to track something different. So to give you an example, just to touch on these segments up here, evergreen metrics are things that you're always going to track these things, no matter what life cycle your business is in, whether you are building or growing or scaling, these metrics are always going to be measured. Now, depending on what growth of your business that you're in, and you've went through and you've done this planning, you've done financial forecasting for the next 3 months and 12 months and 3 years, we know that, okay, aesthetics is running pretty good. We have a good team in place over there. They are focused on optimizing that, but we want to expand into offering wellness services now. And the reason that, and this is, normally I wouldn't have 4 cash flow indicators on here. Normally I would only have 3 per section. You can kind of see that on here. However, I don't have a third one in this. So overall, we have the same amount of KPIs overall, but per section, I would not have more than 3, so that I can really stay focused and honed in on those. Now, in marketing, you're going to have a team or one person that's really in charge of marketing, and they're going to be looking at more information. But on a high level, you're going to be looking at just these 3 KPIs that are going to give you an indicator, like, is that department operating well? Are they taking care? Are they being good stewards of the role that I have put them in? And if they're doing exceptionally well, you're going to still get a feel from that, from these KPIs. And so we want to focus on getting those things better. But once you start getting too much information in here, it gets overwhelming and irrelevant, and then you don't use it anymore. But where this might change, and so sales and ops, marketing, these are great things that are probably going to change each quarter. So if you're expanding your business into wellness, then you may take off of your aesthetics revenue, because that has gotten to the point that you wanted it to. It's a team over there running, pretty much autonomously by itself. You're still going to be checking on some things, and you're going to see through other areas of the business if something starts to fall behind. But you're not generally going to run into that because of other things that you do in your business to hold your team accountable besides this tool. And so we're going to replace aesthetics revenues with wellness revenues, because we're expanding into that segment and we want that to be profitable as fast as possible. We know that we're going to have to hire a team member or 2 up front. We're going to have to invest in some equipment. We're going to have to invest in some technology and maybe some retail products to really get this up off the ground. We've already done the marketing and testing for it. We know that people want this in our area, and we know it's going to be something that's going to take off, but we want to be intentional. We want to be honed in, and we want to get that off the ground and putting money into our bank account without taking from other business segments as soon as possible. So our focus is going to be changing this to wellness revenues. We're going to leave these other on there because we still want to really focus on these and get them to be where they're more profitable. And so you're going to start tracking wellness revenues. Okay. And so then you're going to set that target in there. So when you're updating your core initiatives, that's going to change. The CEO dashboard is going to change each quarter. And then a lot of times, if you're going to change your sales and operations initiatives over here, then you're probably going to be doing some different marketing efforts, right? So you are expanding into the wellness segment now. So instead of focusing on referral codes, because maybe this is a new segment, so you're not going to have a lot of referrals from the wellness segment yet. Maybe you're going to do some kind of launch party for this wellness segment. And so you're going to do a postcard campaign, and you have already sent all that stuff out in a month before this. And so your event is going to be for the entire month of May, right? So you're going to count how many of those launch campaign cards did people bring in from that mailing that we did? And maybe you're gonna count those instead of the referral codes, because while you were really focused on client retention in the quarter before that, maybe now we're focused on like, okay, we have good client retention. We want to get more new members now. We want to expand our client base now. So we're going to measure our marketing efforts in a different way. So that's how that's going to change. And this is just a very generalized example, but I think you understand where I'm getting at. And then down here in success support. So I love this because, we can talk about all day long that we love to build relationships with our clients and we really value them. But the thing is, like I said, data doesn't lie. And people want to know that, your people on your team, like you want to reaffirm, like, what are we doing to make sure that our clients, our existing clients, know that they are very well taken care of? And so we're going to be gathering surveys from them. We're going to solicit honest Google reviews from them. We're going to respond to every review. That could be another success support KPI that you track on here. How many of our Google reviews did we respond to? You should be all of them. But maybe if you're having problems with that happening, you're going to track that on here. Now, one of the things that I will say that we can also do is have a team member KPI spreadsheet, and it's going to be a little bit different than this. And this is where I love team member KPI tracking for particular roles, because it's just an enhanced level of accountability. I don't recommend starting out with that. I recommend always starting out with the CEO dashboard and just getting familiar with the simplicity of this and driving decisions based off of this. And so if we look at, going back to the success support KPIs, what do you do with this information if it's not what you want? Well, if our target had been 20, we wanted 20 surveys this month and we only got 9 back. Okay. My client relations manager is in charge of making sure that we are sending out these surveys and we're getting them back. So the first thing I'm going to check is, are we sending out these surveys? And if we are sending them out, what's happening? And I've seen this happen before. You may find that you didn't have it set up correctly. And so it was only going to certain types of clients, or it was only going to certain client accounts. And your client relations manager was clicking the button or whatever, but there was some kind of couldn't send it to this person because of their email, or you had some kind of technology integration issue or something, and you were getting these emails that it was getting rejected, but it was going to your junk email, or it was going to an unmonitored email address, something like that. I've seen stuff like that happen. So these, like I said, this at the end of the day is meant to drive action. So going in and starting to ask questions like, why are we're at the end of the month and we didn't even hit 50% of our target. Why is that? And so asking that question why, and then course correcting, because the thing is that this directly affects your cash flow. One, if you don't have systems and processes working properly, then you can't get the feedback that you want, can't optimize that client experience, you can't raise those prices, and you can't make more profitability. Bam, there's your cash flow leak. But you didn't see it because you're looking at what you already have instead of what you don't have. And so this has you digging into that. Google reviews, same thing. Like all of this stuff at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if we're on track, then we know that what we plan to do is working. And one of the things that I meant to do on here is needs, let's see, immediate attention. Actually, I believe this would be critical based on the legend down here. Yeah, 50% or less. This is critical. It's like I immediately need to go and look at that. Like why I need to go talk to my client relations manager. Why are we not hitting our target here? So this shows you what you want to be focusing on first and foremost above everything else. Because the thing is if you hit or exceeded target, like that's great. I would still ask questions like, hey, this is really good. Like we want to duplicate this and make sure we have this again next month. Is there anything that would prevent us to do that? I want to raise this target to where we have a higher target for this because we hit or exceeded it. What initiatives did we implement this month to be able to do that, or this week to be able to do that? Looks like we had a really good week in week 4. What was different about this week than the rest? You still want to ask those questions as much as you want to ask the questions about things that are critical on here. But the things that are on track, it's like, I'm not going to put as much pressure on those. I'm going to be looking more at these ones that are dark green. They hit or exceeded our target. I'm like, I want to do those things better. The needs improvement, like, yeah, but I'm going to go first. Is there anything critical or needs immediate attention on there? That's what I'm going to go look at those things first and course correct those things. Because the thing is that, if we are, another good thing on here to measure is your star rating of your reviews. But the thing is that when you fix one cash flow indicator on here, you probably are going to fix something else or improve something else on here. So going after the things that are critical first are most important. And usually it's going to elevate other KPIs and helping you hit other targets without having to focus on hitting that other target directly. And so one of the other things that, and I forgot to bold this one for you all. This one right here, I think is really important, and you can put this in success or support, or you can put it in people and culture, whatever you want to do, but the average rebooking rate. And so just kind of going back to like, if this rebooking rate is not what we wanted it to be, are we consistently following the process to make sure to ask the client when do they want to schedule their next appointment? If we're not doing that, then we start there. If we are doing that, but they're giving us an objection, like this is where notes are so important. So having your front desk person or maybe your client relations manager, they're checking our clients out and they're taking care of them and they're asking them when they want to book their next appointment, but they're just giving them some objection and our client relations manager doesn't know how to handle that objection. Having them make a note like, hey, if they did not rebook their next appointment, the default is that they have to record a note on their profile that the client is not going to see saying this was their objection to scheduling their next appointment, whether it was like, oh, I need to look at my calendar, or I don't have time, or I will call you all back, or something like that. You want to get what those objections are, because a lot of times whatever they say is not truly what the reason is. And we want to get to the depth of that. So we want to reach out to these clients and give them that personalized, like, hey, I know that you said that you needed to look at your calendar and we just wanted to check with you before the spots fill up. And you miss out on that opportunity to get that rescheduled. And so this is where, if we know we put a process in place and we're following it and we're getting a lot of objections, we got to start digging into, okay, we're not hitting our target, so we got to be doing something differently to handle these objections. And maybe we need to get some sales training for our client relations manager. You can never have too much sales training, y'all. And then, revenue per team member, I'm going to fix this right here. I think this is a great and important metric, because this just helps us to be able to measure a few things, the effectiveness of our team. It also helps to see, is our team getting maxed out, and maybe we need to look at bringing somebody else on sooner than later. If we've hit or exceeded our target, we've got 5 team members and we are expecting each of them to generate, an average of $5,000 per team member per week, and we've exceeded that, we're probably about ready to hire another team member, because they're going to exceed their capacity. And the last thing we want is for them to be getting burnt out or not to be able to fill up any more schedules, or whatever the case may be, mistakes happening, whatever that looks like. And, some other things that you can measure on here is the capacity of your practice. If you have 4 rooms and those are getting filled up 60% of the time, and you're like, oh, I kind of feel like we need to expand it to another space, but you have 40% of room in there to fill up. Like, are there people's schedules that we need to fill up? Why are we not maximizing the capacity of this room? Can we use this room for more than one purpose? Like, really getting clear on that. Because you want to maximize the capacity of what you have. One of a big profitability, erosion thing and cash flow erosion thing is not utilizing capacity properly. And I know that's a big thing in aesthetics, and some people are really great at this and some people really struggle with this. And so that's something that you may consider tracking and measuring on here too. What is the capacity that we are hitting right now, and what do we want to hit before we start considering expanding? I think a lot of people make the mistake of expanding too soon rather than too late. And then what happens is that when you expand into offering other treatments or services, um, that maybe you have to have a different person for, or a different skill set for, then you don't just expand and offer another revenue stream, you offer another expense stream. And if you're not aware of what that actually costs to be able to expand, it's going to erode your cash flow real quick. So I would be very mindful of like going all in, maximizing the different segments that you have, and being aware of like, what are my profitability ratios? And this is where, looking at the monthly KPIs, we're going to be looking at profitability. We're going to be looking at what should my profitability be before I go to expand my business, and answering some more of those questions. And that's where, in between having your financials closed out at the end of every month and going over that with your advisor, this dashboard is going to give you so much ability to take action even without that information, until you're waiting for that at the end of each month. And so that weekly dashboard is going to give you more insight on looking at the progress of your company over over months at a time, so a 12-month period. And one of the other things I really love about the weekly dashboard is that, especially with some of the metrics that you're going to be measuring, maybe you measure the same KPIs for an entire 12 months, especially these evergreen. Like I said, you may always be measuring these things, which I would anticipate that you will. But maybe you keep these the same and you change your marketing, because it's like, these didn't hit the targets that we wanted, so we're going to change our marketing initiatives for this period. But the really cool thing about this is that you might be looking at May, and maybe you've got 6 months worth of data in here. It's going to be really easy to click through each of these, and you're going to start noticing trends. And trends are so eye-opening. I love, love, love looking at comparative information, because one, it just helps you see what progress have I made, which is always fun to see, because I know as entrepreneurs, when we are in the day-to-day, we tend to get lost in the day-to-day, and it's hard sometimes for us to appreciate the growth that we have had, that our team has had. And I love being able to look at this information over the last 6 months, over the last 12 months, and be able to spot trends, and to truly be able to see like, oh, we've really come way further than I thought that we did. And it's just a really satisfying tool. And that comes back into, this is how data starts to show you alignment. When you become a data-driven CEO and you are using this as the steering wheel of your business, because it truly is. I mean, think about the steering wheel of a car, right? It is one very small component in the thousands of components that it takes to make up a car, yet it directs the entire car, right? And so some could argue that it's the most important piece of the car. And so, this is just an opportunity and a tool for you to truly see like how you're coming into alignment with the vision that you have. And so you'll hear me mention that a lot. I think vision is the most important thing. Clearly understanding the purpose of your company is the most important thing before anything else, because the thing is that you can be making great money, you can be doing a lot of things, but at the end of the day, if you are not clear on the impact it's going to make, if you are not fulfilled in what you're doing every day, there's only so long that cash flow is going to provide you any kind of happiness. It's not going to provide you true joy. And so I think the CEO dashboard just shows you really inside of who you are and what you're creating, and who you've brought together as your team in alignment with the vision and the purpose and the goals of your company and your core values. And you just see that progress over time with once you start tracking this data. And that's why I'm saying, just put it together now. I don't care if it's messy, done is better than nothing when it comes to this information. And when you are working on becoming a data-driven CEO, becoming a CEO that consistently shows up and consistently looks at this, and despite how you feel, or despite you have a lot of stuff going on this Tuesday, and that is the day every week you look at that CEO dashboard, you're going to look at this and you're going to take 30 minutes to go and tell your team like, hey, I noticed these 3 things. Can I get some updates on this? What are we going to do about this to course correct now instead of waiting until the end of the month when I get the financials, you know? So use this tool. You have access to us and our team. If you have questions about how to set this up, please let us know. If you want this to be customized and set up for your team, and if you want that business blueprint where we set up that annual business plan and we're meeting every quarter and we are very intentional, and you were talking about wanting to invest in serious growth to take your company to where you are not making steps, you are making leaps. That planning process is so important, so intentional. And the cool thing about it is that you can design and build and grow your entire company and not suck your life away to have to do it. And actually, this is going to give you your time back too. And that's what I love. There's just so many things that are cool about this tool that you can literally plant this into your business. And if you have a dream to have multiple businesses, which I think is so cool, you're going to be able to do this the first time and it's going to take you a little bit longer. After that, you're going to be able to plug and play and it is going to be so simple. That next business is going to be cake compared to this one that you are building. So reach out to our team if we can help you. Come back to this video and we will make a second series to go over the monthly CEO dashboard template and what information is different on there and what to take from that information now that you have a good grip on the weekly. It's really the same thing, different information on there. And so it'll just be an example of what are some things that we look at on a monthly basis for a med spa compared to a weekly basis.